The picture of, he wasn't able to identify Arthur Lee Allen.
I went to Vallejo Police Department. Mr. Bauer put out a photo spread, and it gave me the impression that Lee Allen was the person that he thought was the Zodiac. This person outweighed the person that I saw that night by about 100 pounds, I would estimate, just an estimate, which took him out. His face, even though it's round, was too round. I don't recall him showing me a photograph of a profile that he says he did of Arthur Allen, but Zodiac had a widow's peak, hair coming in the center more and receding on both sides of the forehead. I don't know if that's the proper term for it, but that's what my parents used to call it. That was my impression at the time, is that it was not Lee Allen.
I was never approached about listening to Arthur Allen's voice.
Lee Allen didn't sound like him.
It does strike me that all of the so-called evidences against Lee seem to be sort of statistical in nature. That if you took a million-odd people and said, well, let's go looking around and find someone who wears an odd Zodiac watch, who is also spends a lot of time around the water, and you keep layering these, you know, you're making a Venn diagram, and you got a whole bunch of circles, and pretty soon you find that there's a guy in the middle of all those circles. That doesn't constitute evidence. Beyond the accusation, there's nothing of any substance.
We have to recognize that you look at enough people and you're going to see all sorts of weird connections that develop.
He didn't help things because he played with the investigators and seemed to kind of enjoy being under suspicion. So he would throw out tidbits that would fuel the fire.
It's very important, and I think this is something that's been forgotten about in the Zodiac case. It's very important to let the evidence drive the suspects, not the suspects drive the evidence. What I mean by that is we evaluate our suspects by our known, reliable physical evidence. We don't look at a good suspect that we think, you know, we have a personal interest in or particular theory that we've favored, and then start to reinterpret the physical evidence. That's not how you do a case. That's gotten a lot of people into trouble in the whole Jack the Ripper case, one of the most famous unsolved serial murder investigations. And we tend to see now books with very titles full of hubris about how, you know, they've solved the case, etc. But actual fact, they tend to be more textbooks for how not to do a criminal investigation. It's important for any analyst or investigator or profiler, detective, or anyone who is seeking to determine the truth, and let's throw in judges and scientists here too, is to come with it as unbiased as possible, look through all the facts and the data, and make the best determination at the end of the day. But if we made our determination beforehand, the psychological research is very clear. Try as we might, we become locked into circular patterns of thinking, and we keep returning to what we want to think rather than what the evidence suggests that we should think.
In cases where you have people coming forward that know a suspect and they are validating the suspicion of that person, it further complicates the case. It further complicates our efforts to either include or exclude that person as the responsible person. And what we've seen over and over again is when we get this suspect that is almost but not quite right, we have a very difficult time typically excluding them from the investigation.
So if we're going to evaluate someone like Arthur Lee Allen, we have to consider all the ways he doesn't match the profile of the Zodiac or the evidence pointing towards the Zodiac.
He's not the kind of person that I believe that committed these kinds of crimes. He's wrong for several reasons. The Zodiac, I believe, was a heterosexual male who was attracted to age-appropriate women. And Mr. Allen, is my understanding, was preferred children, which would exclude him again as the perpetrator of these crimes. I think it's also important that Mr. Allen displayed sadistic tendencies, and the Zodiac displayed no sadistic tendencies in these crimes. These crimes were committed very quickly, and I think that that is extremely important distinction between Mr. Allen and the Zodiac.
One of the things we knew he had to do down the road was show Mike Majou the photo lineup that I showed all these other people. To our knowledge, he had never seen a photo lineup with Arthur Lee Allen in it. I just thought it was going to be bip bam and I'd be on the way. And so I had this photo lineup with me, and I chatted with him briefly, how you doing and what's going on, and then I gave him what they call the lineup admonishment. Admonishment is that I'm going to show you a group of photographs. The responsible that shot you on July 4th, 1969 may or may not be amongst these group of photos. Merely because I'm showing you pictures, you don't have to pick somebody out. He said he understood. I gave him this set of pictures. He looked at it for about 20 seconds, and he said, pointed to Arthur Lee Allen and said, "That's him, that's the man that shot me." I was flabbergasted. I knew we'd have to re-interview him some more, setting up a time when he could come to Vallejo, which ultimately was done. We flew him up and had a more in-depth interview up there. And so with that, I was able to write a search warrant that was ultimately signed by a judge, and we searched the house, and we found hidden in the basement bombs, completed pipe bombs, formulas for making fuel oil bombs, as the Zodiac had described in one of his letters, where he was going to blow up school buses with little children in them. The same type of bombs, the formulas for making that stuff.
He said that he had been visited by someone, an acquaintance, I think from Atascadero, but I'm not sure, and that person must have left these bomb makings there, and that was apparently some sort of a link to the Zodiac killer.
We were going to charge him with possession of the explosives and the killing at Blue Rock Springs. We actually had a meeting set up to go to the district attorney's office, and about a week before the meeting, I got a call from a police officer named Terry Barron. I was at home, and he asked me if I was still looking at Arthur Lee Allen as the responsible in the killing at Blue Rock Springs of Darlene Farron. I said, yeah. And being kind of a smart aleck, the police officer said to me, well, I'm standing in his house and he's laying on the floor. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, yeah, he's on the floor, but he's dead. They weren't going to even have an autopsy because he was under doctor's care. I insisted, and they did do an autopsy, and he died of a heart attack. And during that autopsy is when they were directed by me to take tissue samples for DNA down the road, because I could foresee DNA becoming prevalent in this case, and that's why you have DNA to this day.
They actually got the brain fluid, from Arthur Lee Allen. They did a test, and it's a match. These guys are jumping up and down. They're really happy. So while we're sitting there, their cell phones ring, and they'd rerun it, and it wasn't a match. But I'm telling you, for about a minute there, I love DNA. I thought this was absolutely great. And you never saw two more crestfallen guys. I mean, they had really been working. Well, they're guys in Santa Rosa who are convinced Arthur Lee Allen is the Zodiac. They're, certainly Boward and Conway and Tosky and myself and Morrell. He certainly, except he couldn't get the handwriting to match, he certainly thought that it was a great possibility. But some really great detectives, and I don't think they're all wrong.
He was my friend. I miss him, and I think he was unjustly accused, but I'm not absolutely certain.
Let's just say it's nobody we ever heard of. It's some lout in a cabin somewhere. He's still catchable. It's still solvable. There's still justice that's out there. This is a chance to write the perfect ending, and it's still possible.